Lads, hello and welcome to KoiCast, a podcast where we talk about pop culture, comics, and an affinity for most people. I am Koi Jandro. I am joined by the ever-lovely, the ever-more spring-willing Jake Lloyd Bacon. How is the great Green North?
I mean, you know, it's getting there. It's still mostly just dead trees, but there's some flowers. Some cherry blossoms are blossoming.
We had a switch of weather this week, and not to start a podcast with small talk about the weather, but this isn't small talk. This is big talk.
Yeah.
You had an earthquake the same day we had hail.
The fuck? What the hell? I literally brought earthquakes with me from California. Sorry, East Coast. But it was like the entire
I love that I got
coast.
all the way into that sentence before you knew what I was talking about. I literally, I had landed the ending.
No, I knew what you were getting at. Listen, I'm a good co-host. I just try not to jump in ahead of time and interrupt you since I know what you're going to say.
Who would do that?
Anyways, it was the entire East Coast because I have family in Florida who felt it. That's insane.
You know what I wonder? Is it because of the commonality of earthquakes out here that we don't even notice the force, so it is the whole West Coast, and therefore, like, when there's anything on the East Coast, the entire East Coast is like, I noticed the slightest tremor, but out here we're like, if it's a 5 or above, I'm gonna talk about it. Otherwise,
no, I think it's science. I think it's just the where the plates are and the way that things shift and move and where they occur. Because I feel like in the southern and the southwest, like you can have a very localized earthquake where like, oh, it was
because the plates are stacked differently, so it can kind of absorb and
it was freaky. I was at my sister's house and was talking to her, and all of a sudden the glass doors that are like the bathroom, like shower, you know, like the shower glass doors that suspend, just started clanking together in the ground, and like the whole house started shaking, and I was just like, son of a bitch. And immediately I was just like,
sorry.
I was like, I really thought that we were not having to worry about this right now. But
well, I'm going to do my own research on this science you talk about, but I'm sure it really happened. That said, it has been a crazy start to spring. We had WonderCon last week, which Jake and I talked about on the last KoiCast about his, like, that's like Jake's big con. I will say, I only went Sunday, but this was a fun one. But next week, I have my first ever CinemaCon. And it's cool to go to something that feels familiar but completely new. Like, it's two pieces of a puzzle that I am all too familiar with. I am a giant movie fan, and specifically the exhibition industry. I love the actual distribution level. My first real job is at a movie theater. My mom runs a movie theater. Like, that's in my blood as much as anything. As close to nepotism as I have in the entertainment industry, it's like getting free movie tickets. If my last name carries any weight, it's in the AMC game. But I've never been to anything that celebrates the actual movie theater. And then also, I do a lot of work at cons, but I've never gone to one without any familiarity. Like, I think growing up, every comic fan had heard of San Diego Comic-Con. I think every comic fan went to a local one first, or at least most. This is the first time I'm going to something brand new, but it also feels like I should know about it. Well, so it's really exciting. I've never been to CinemaCon, and I actually know so little.
Not to undercut your excitement, but that is my job. Isn't Comic-Con just
That's true.
Isn't Comic-Con just CinemaCon now?
I feel that argument. I actually expected that argument from you because that is your job. But I thought
when I heard of CinemaCon, I went, that sounds like every Comic-Con I've ever been to. It's about what movies. In fact, it's more exclusionary. It's like, oh, except you're not getting comic books or television or video games.
At least it's properly branded then.
No,
what you're describing is an honest con.
100%, I respect that. This is not a slight on CinemaCon. It's a slight on San Diego Comic-Con. Let me be clear.
Fair. Touche. I mean, this is also in Vegas, and it seems to me, from what I gather, is the stuff they show won't all be allowed to talk about. Unlike Comic-Con, which is a publicity leg, this is in-house in theater to get them to basically decide the number of theaters each movie is going to get, but that doesn't allow people that have been privy to that to share that information.
So it's like a press
I feel
market.
like, yeah, it's kind of like, you know, what's your Q4 and Q1 next year? How many theaters are going to get this movie? How many screens of this movie? And that doesn't mean we can suddenly talk about it until the NDAs are up. So it's a really interesting way to talk internally, but also share it with like a certain 1,200 people or whatever. So it is a little different from Comic-Con in the fact that it's like everything's Hall H. but they also do different screenings at night of movies that like we don't know yet, but might be able to talk about. So I just don't know what I'm getting into. I know that I heard there were popcorn bucket manufacturers that go, and I just got so excited about the idea of like the next Dune bucket. Like I get to see what absurd meme is going to come, but also laser projectors, the future of Dolby. Like as a theater nerd, because I've had more good experiences than bad. I know that, statistically Jake is on the other side of that, and I'm sorry for the curse I've given you. But overall, I really love the theater, so I'm curious what, advances are going to come in the next couple of years. They'll be showing off. So I'm excited just from a theater nerd standpoint, but have you heard about it or been?
No, never been. It sounds to me like a combination of Comic-Con and NAMM. Do you know what NAMM is?
Oh, yeah. I've heard of NAMM, but only in brief.
So, yeah, I've worked a few of those, and it's like, what's happening in the world of music and instruments and audio engineering. And it's like, there's a little bit of like, hey, check out the new technology, check this out. And that's where it kind of reminds me of NAMM. And then the other side of it is also, like you said, it's like a bunch of panels about promoting shit that, you want people to come out, but also maybe to gauge interest.
Yeah, I'm super intrigued. And it's just exciting to have something that feels new. I know no disrespect to obviously Comic-Con, WonderCon, any of the cons we've been doing, but you kind of know what you're getting in for 80% of the way. 20% is always going to be, variable, but you drive to WonderCon, there's a certain feeling, which is the positive, that you're like, I know what this is. So I'm excited to go to Vegas, which is an alien place to me. I've been to Vegas, I think 7 times, but never for work. So that'll be interesting. And also to just experience, I don't know, the con culture mixed with Vegas, but to a movie scale. I've actually worked 2 cons in Vegas, but they were like local comic cons where the big headliners were like Marv Wolfman and stuff. So to be at a thing where it's like the Fall Guy is showing, I'm really weird. It's going to be really strange. It's also a fight weekend. Friday is UFC 300 in Vegas. So fight weekends in Vegas are insane. So combining those things, I am hype, and I hope to come back in one piece.
It's also literally like dead center at Caesar's Palace. And so, like, you're right.
Yeah, it's in it.
That's going to be interesting. Although it's like, it's an odd month for Vegas for events. But yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be fun. I think that's a good climate.
Yeah, it'll be fun to come back and tell y'all about. That said, we did have some news I wanted to tell y'all about this week. We have done less news generally on KoiCast because we, kind of do the show less often, and the internet decided that if the thing is 5 minutes old, it is irrelevant. But I do like sharing some of the big news that I think Jake will have interesting takes about, as well as I like the conversations with our somewhat contrarian nature to each other. I'm really excited, and I think this is one that Jake and I will share like exactly eye to eye. Did you hear about the Supergirl director casting or hiring?
No, I didn't. I thought you were going to go with the other casting things, but no, I did not hear about Supergirl.
Oh yeah, we'll get there, and I think that's gotten really bad headlines that are phrased poorly. But I'm starting with this one for a reason, because I think this is going to be interestingly universally beloved, but it contradicts the other one, which is why I'm setting it up this way. We officially have our director for Supergirl, and it is going to be Craig Gillespie. And Craig Gillespie made one of Jake and I's favorite little underdog movies of the last couple of years that not enough people talked about, Dumb Money. So the director of Dumb Money is doing this, and he also did Cruella, which I think really shows a genius world building as well as a talent in directing actors. Like a lot of things Supergirl specific. The Woman of Tomorrow comic book is like DC meets Star Wars.
Right.
It's a really colorful, vast, insane world. So I immediately was like, oh, Cruella's like a great, here's my resume. And then beyond that, I think Dumb Money shows his ability to do the absurd in a really grounded way. And then beyond that, he did a few of my favorite episodes of Pam and Tommy, which I thought also shows absurdism in a grounded way that's also highly entertaining. Yeah. And as far as acting and directing actors incredibly, I think Margot Robbie is one of the great actors of our times right now. And it just so happens she's like one of the most stunning people of all time.
Right.
But her acting doesn't get talked about as much because she is picturesque. I think I, Tonya is such an incredible performance. I think he brings out such good performances from Sebastian Stan, obviously from Margot Robbie, all the supporting cast. So this man did I, Tonya, Dumb Money, Pam and Tommy. He recently did Dumb Money, and he also did one of the most fun remakes of a classic movie I've ever seen, Fright Night with Colin Farrell.
That's great.
I am so excited by this resume going into Supergirl, and now we have James Gunn,
I mean,
James Mangold, Craig Gillespie, and Andy Muschietti at DC. This is a murderer's row of directors.
And you named like nearly every single one of his movies except the best one among them all. And I don't know how you could bring up Margot Robbie without talking about Ryan Gosling, because he also directed Lars and the Real Girl.
Oh, I always forget he did that because I saw that movie in such a void, and it is incredible.
That is like, the beginning of Ryan Gosling's connection to inanimate objects, to dolls, and the Ryan Gosling doll universe.
I really like that the two things came together by way of like Margot Robbie in a movie, Ryan Gosling with the doll. The connecting tissue is Craig Gillespie.
Yeah, no, I think he's great. And the reality is like he's one of those directors who he does, like I said, he does like the quirky indie. He did the horror. He did the big biopic, the fourth wall breaking, mockumentary style biopic in Itanya. He did the giant Disney IP that made $1 billion fucking dollars. And then he also does like the little Netflix dumb. The guy clearly doesn't have a lane, a very, very distinct lane, which I think lends itself to work in this genre. This is the problem. The thing that people claim is the problem with the MCU, I argue, is kind of what made it so successful. People are like, oh, you can't have like an auteur director. You can't have somebody who's like very, very, very specific, and that sucks. I'm like, no, that's kind of what you need if you want all of these things to coexist with one another. Like, it's, you got to take, you can't be like, oh my God, Edgar Wright's Ant-Man probably was the best thing ever, and been like, hey, Infinity Saga was fantastic, because you can't have one with the other. Do you know what I mean? Like, the reality is like,
I think that's why the Incredible Hulk didn't fold into the universe well, is because if you rewatch the Incredible Hulk, it is so specific, and that Hulk doesn't play with a team well. And I think that's why they've kind of like not retconned it, but they've made it so once they recast Mark Ruffalo, they cherry picked the elements of Incredible Hulk they wanted to keep. But the movie overall,
cast, pretty much,
what you're saying, the Incredible Hulk is one of those very specific types of movies that wouldn't necessarily play.
Yeah, I don't know. I might disagree with that. But I get what you're saying, though. It is more of like, it's more of its director. It's more, and maybe
whereas
maybe
I
of
think
its
that
star.
I'm agreeing with where we've gotten. Yeah, I was gonna say it might not be of its director. It might be of the guy running it.
Did you ever see the Bruce Willis roast? The Comedy Central Bruce Willis roast?
Oh, it's so good. So good.
The way that Norton roasts him in that is, if you haven't seen it, it's like one of the most like sharply written, it's a monologue. Oh, at the end of the day, it's just a performative monologue. It's so goddamn funny. And he like simultaneously takes down Marvel and Bruce Willis. It's fantastic. If you haven't watched it, it's on Paramount Plus. You should watch it. But anyways, I digress.
It's some of the most official direction I've heard about the Incredible Hulk, and it happened to be during a Bruce Willis roast. But so it's some of the most revealing BTS.
But in any case, I think he's perfect, because I do think and honestly, out of all of these things, the real honest credit to him that makes us know he'll be fine is Cruella, because for all of its flaws, story-wise or whatever, like, it shows that he can play in that environment with a corporate oversight that DC is going to have, and it shows that he can still produce something of quality, and that, like, he's not writing it, so it's not whether or not it's the story itself works is kind of not up to him. Do you know what I mean? And he clearly is good at executing something on a grand scale for a giant IP that it will have giant corporate synergy and oversight and sell fucking action figures. Like, he's the right guy for this, for sure.
I hadn't even thought of the oversight element, which is like you said, that's the big element, because Cruella is obviously one of the, not just a Disney property, but an iconic one.
Yeah.
So there's going to be doubly oversight on that.
He had to answer to 20 fucking people at minimum, 20, if not 100 throughout the entire process. Yeah. I guarantee you. Quote, directing.
Yeah, it might have been like 20 daily.
Yeah, exactly.
But that being said, that brings us to our casting news of the week. And I think it's been a really funny to see the direct hypocrisy of how no one has their hands in the air, or less people have their hands in the air over Craig Gillespie directing Supergirl, as the large contingent of a certain corner of the internet has as their dicks in the air over Silver Surfer being mislabeled, in my opinion. I think Shala Ball has been cast, but Julia Garner has joined the cast of Fantastic Four, and I think a lot of misleading headlines have caused the internet to lose its collective mind. And I'm of the mind that I think this is going to be interesting either way, and either way they take it, I'm not offended. But the reports have come in that Julia Garner of Ozark fame is in the Fantastic Four. She will be playing Shala Ball, and a lot of people have also credited that to her playing Silver Surfer. Now, Shala Ball is in the comics a Herald of Galactus, but more importantly, she is the reason for Norrin Radd to sacrifice himself. So in the comic book, Silver Surfer shows up in the issue 1 of Silver Surfer.
Right.
He is confronted with Galactus, and basically Galactus is there to consume his world. He makes a deal because he's madly... Norrin Radd makes a deal because he's madly in love with his wife, Shala Ball, that he will save their planet by becoming the Herald of Galactus and going off and sacrificing other worlds.
Right.
We find out through time that basically Silver Surfer is trying to be altruistic and not have them with life, but sometimes he has to make that sacrifice. It's a really interesting moral story, but it's rooted in love with Shala Ball. Now, she later on becomes a Herald of Galactus herself, and this is where I think the misreporting is coming in. There are 3 options here. 1, she is just going to play the wife of Norrin Radd.
Right.
2, she herself is going to play a Herald of Galactus.
She's going to be
and therefore they might have an element.
She's going to be this Silver Surfer in a way, if we're giving the name Silver Surfer to any person who's made of silver and is a Herald of Galactus. Yes. Right.
Or 3, she's going to be a way to express that this is a multiverse. And this is what I think it's going to be, is the Fantastic Four are in a universe of their own, and they have their Silver Surfer, and it's the Silver Surfer of our universe that alerts them that they aren't in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, this is one
I
thing.
think there's going to be a multiversal.
This is one thing that Marvel's done that's irritated me, and I get it, but also like the fact that they are saying, "Hey, the MCU is 616." Like, no, it can't be, because that's what it is in the comic. Anyways, I digress.
It's 199999 because 616 is the comics.
I know,
and the comics aren't the movies.
It drives me crazy. But in any case, so if we are saying that those 2 universes don't exist with one another, like if the comic and the let's I fucking hate the multiverse. Okay, anyway, so let's say that's the case, then. So what you're saying is that she is not 616 Silver Surfer. Fantastic Four do not take place in the 616. They take place in fucking whatever. And so
7152.
My question then, because you say, oh, this will be some multiversal stuff. In your eyes, then, do you think that we will then see our universes, quote, Fantastic Four or Silver Surfer, or will there be no Fantastic Four in our universe in the 616? And
I think there will be no Fantastic Four, but there will be a Silver Surfer, and it will be Norrin Radd. I think, I don't know if, I mean, you're not nearly as online as I am because you enjoy your life. There was about a 10-minute window where Lakeith Stanfield posted on Instagram and he said, "Oh, I thought that was my role," and then deleted it soon thereafter. I think Lakeith Stanfield got cast as Silver Surfer.
Not after
Reports came out that Julia Garner was cast as Silver Surfer, and then now he's like, oh.
Well, I mean, not for nothing, but if that came down, there's a good chance he just got uncast as Silver Surfer.
I think he was supposed to be our Norrin Radd and might have Instagrammed his way out of that. Or
it's interesting. So I heard about this. I did not know the detail that you are stating, that the announcement was that she's cast as Shala Ball. I only heard, Julia Garner cast as Silver Surfer. That was, and so I don't know who the first report was. I don't know who the first people to report on it was. Was the language in that first reporting just Silver Surfer, or was it Shala Ball and everybody's just the internet gonna internet?
The first thing I saw was Deadline say Shala Ball, and within minutes they changed it to Shala Ball, a Herald of Galactus, the Silver Surfer. So I think an intern Googled. I honestly think it grew as a story, or someone like misinterpreted a leak, or like it's so many variables. And at the end of the day, none of that matters until it's like released, because this might have just been Marvel testing the waters, or it was them going like, she is Shala Ball, or it was her Silver Surfer. But either way, we don't know, because the character in the comic books is a herald, but never is actually the full,
right. Yes. It's, I mean, she's
never Norrin Radd. They're not gender swapping a character. They're casting a female as a female.
They're literally just, they're not gender swapping. They're rewriting a character. They've done this.
If that's the case.
If that's the case. And they've done it a million times. Like, we literally have combined 2 stories into one for some characters. You know what I mean? Like, they've taken so many liberties at this point that why anybody? I'm fucking so irritated at this point. I don't know how you deal with this.
I
on a
lost
daily basis.
130 followers
I don't know.
posting about it being ridiculous that people care about the.
That-
I mean, I quoted Mallrats. I said the sex organs as a fictional character cost me so many followers, but like,
In fairness,
I don't want those followers. I don't want those people.
Coy, I'm sorry. I meant to stop you. I apologize. That was me and my 129 burner accounts. I just couldn't fucking deal with you anymore.
Okay. You were out. You were done. That's fair.
But I don't know. Yeah, this is it's great. Either way, I don't know. I haven't watched Ozark despite Bateman being one of my favorite directors. I really want to. I know this girl from one of my all-time favorite movies, which I need everybody in the world to see this fucking movie because it's so goddamn good. A movie called I literally have not seen a single fucking person who's ever heard of this goddamn movie. It's called Electric Children, and electric is spelt Trick at the end, so it's electric with a K. Electric Children. It is about, she plays a young Amish girl who's like a boy that she, another boy that's like an Amish boy that she lives with, like gets like a tape cassette with rock and roll music on it. Okay. And she ends up getting pregnant. And we, the viewer and the people, don't know whether rock and roll music made her pregnant and she's literally like an immaculate conception, or if like she hooked up with the boy and science is science
because of rock and roll music.
And so she ends up and like leaves and sort of like goes on like what would be considered a Rumspringa kind of, but generally that's really primarily like for young males and whatnot. But and it's got fucking the Culkin from Succession, who everybody fucking loves. Kieran, thank you. I confuse the first names all the time. It's an incredible cast. It's such a gorgeous movie. It's so well made, and she is mesmerizing in it. And she's a kid. I don't know how long ago that movie was, but let's see if I can find it. Julia Garner. How do I find your IMDb quickly? Anyways, yeah. It's
I have to assume this is all the origin story of Jared Leto, the immaculate conception of a rock god.
But whatever it is, it's fucking great. And the second I saw the picture, I went like, "Fuck, it's the girl from Electric Children." And that was enough to excite me because she's just so goddamn good. But I mean, listen, Marvel's like, despite some recent missteps, their batting average is still fucking Hall of Fame worthy. They're still on the All-Star team.
It's still like 800. It's not even like 500.
Exactly.
It's still like 800.
They are still in the number 4 spot of the All-Star lineup team because they are fucking knocking them out of the park better than anybody else is. So like, we'll see how it goes. Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it won't be great. But the rest of the cast seems to be fun. The presentation so far seems to be fun. I'm excited. This is gonna be a hot take. This is gonna get me some ats. Now I'm gonna lose 130 followers, and I only got like 162. Okay. This morning before we recorded, I caught up on X-Men 97.
I wanted to talk about that. Yes, makes me happy. Okay, good.
I am enjoying that show so much. I legitimately don't give 2 fucks about live action X-Men. If this is the X-Men that Marvel wants to give us right now, that Disney wants to give us right now, I'm fine with it. I don't need X-Men live action at all. At fucking all. Fantastic Four, I need and want the live action because we've never gotten it in a way that I have felt fulfilled. Do you know what I mean?
That's where I am with X-Men. I think we've only gotten one X-Men movie and one good Logan movie.
I think we've gotten 2.5 X-Men movies. Personally.
Okay, which are your 2.5?
I think, and again, you might disagree with me on this. I think we've got X-Men, X-Men the first one, for all its flaws, is of its era, but it's an X-Men movie. It's got all the shit that we want out of it. It's got the camaraderie, the familial aspect. It's got all of the beats. It's got a great relationship or two that really truly work on screen despite the writing being not so good, right? That's probably, maybe that's the half, okay? X2, that's a fucking X-Men movie. That's a fucking about not being mutants. It's about the fucking brotherhood. It's got all the fucking beats. It's got some of the moves. It's got some of the visuals. It's got fucking it's got Beast and Angel. That's a great fucking X-Men movie. Oh, maybe that's not great. It's a very, very good X-Men movie. And then Days of Future Past is also okay. Maybe it's like 0.75 for the first one, 0.75 for this one. There's our 2.5 total. Days of Future Past has all the things I like about X-Men. It was just the execution was a little wonky, but it was, in my opinion, that's the best of that era of X-Men.
Days of Future Past is, I think, the best Singer one. I am personally, I think the only one that feels like an X-Men movie is Matthew Vaughn's.
First Class.
Like, I think First Class.
Oh, God,
so bad. For me, First Class is my favorite of them.
First Class bothers the shit out of me. That to me, I think I feel like it exists in a weird biosphere of film production and comic book media, where at this point, by the time First Class is out, the MCU is establishing themselves as, firing on all cylinders, making this shit work. You've got Nolan Batmans have been fucking outstanding. You know what I mean? And then it still feels like a Fox movie that wants to be more mature. And when I say more mature, I don't mean serious, more mature. I mean more modern. That's what I should say, right? It wants to have all the right beats. And so the amalgamation of the two lend itself to be kind of self-serious in a negative way. Self-serious in a way doesn't work. And the editing, the pacing, it feels, I've said this before on the show, I think when I did a rewatch, maybe for one of our Patreon-only pods. The entire movie,
we have exact opposite opinions on this.
It feels, the entire movie, that movie to me feels like it was shot for trailers. Like every scene ends the exact same way. Every scene ends with a slow push on a fucking character's face, and someone else saying "There's a war coming. Are you sure you're on the right side?" And it happens 9 scenes in a row. Every scene ends like Lost going to commercial. If that makes sense. Do you remember? Does that make sense?
That's really good. That's really
every
good.
single scene in First Class feels like it ends with Lost.
See, to me, that feels like X-Men 90s comics, where every issue ends with and it also reminds me of the animated series where it's but
then you had to wait a month, or you had to wait 2 minutes for a commercial break.
You had to wait a scene.
Both would have been more than jumping right into another scene that sometimes feels like a non sequitur. I don't know. I don't hate. By the way, I don't hate First Class. I just think it has.
And Days of Future Past are close. I think we have the same favorite two singers. Days of Future Past and X2 are my favorite singers.
Yeah.
But I personally felt the tone for me of Days of Future Past, First Class connected more to the X-Men than I feel.
Right.
But none of them have felt completely like the X-Men because they're all missing key ingredients that wouldn't have been allowed. So
yeah,
I personally really want live action because I feel the same like you feel Fantastic Four, that I've never gotten fulfilled. X-Men's my team. I mean, when we do our games, we're always X-Men. I still don't feel like I've gotten that in live action.
Yeah, I understand that point. And that might also just come from you are just whatever the 5-year difference is, 6-year difference is, your bar is probably just inherently a little bit higher than mine for certain IPs. Because I was a senior in high school.
Oh, sure.
I was a senior in high school when X-Men came out, and it didn't
matter.
Before
anything
it didn't matter how bad that was going to be. I was like, did you see when Wolverine in the trailer put his claws and swung around the Statue of Liberty? By the way, we're in New York. We're New Yorkers. The X-Men it's fucking the coolest thing in the world. Yeah, it didn't fucking matter. It didn't matter. And we're like, wait a minute, are you telling me Darth Maul is Toad? That's the coolest thing that's possible.
One of my favorite memories of all time is my dad is huge into Claremont Byrne. That's where a big chunk of my X-Men collection came from, was when X2 ended and the Phoenix is in the water. That was one of the longest first conversations I had with my dad about comic movies.
Right.
And I think that's one of the most formative conversations I had about my career I currently have. So X2 will always have that image, even though it never fucking paid off. Will always be supremely important to my comic movie lore. But the movie has enough things that just feels like it changed Mutantum. I would love to see that pay off.
X2 as arguably the closest thing to to X-Men comic book sequences in the movie. The opening sequence of X2, undeniably one of the greatest.
Nightcrawler White House is one of the best.
And the closing as well. And it has there are sequences in that movie that feel the closest to reading the comics, like a sequence that you'd read in a comic, than any other movie. Outside of,
I think X2 is the belovedness of X2 is not undeserved. But that was 20 years ago. I love that we've improved on our Spider-Man. I want that for X-Men. I think Logan was a great example of how, as the movies matured, we went from not even X-Men Origins Wolverine, even X-Men 1 and X2 Wolverine to Logan is a leap. So I want that for the team. I want Storm to get her live action due. I want Cyclops to get his live action due. I think, if anything, X-Men 97 is showing like Gold Team, Blue Team are getting the love because clearly the people behind the X-Men show are comic fans. Yeah. It feels like they respect Storm and Cyclops in a way that I don't think pop culture has ever been delivered on. Like, people going, oh my God, Cyclops. I'm like, yeah, you're caught up. I'm so glad for you. Let's make this live action.
Also, sidebar, I really want the blue mug with the red and yellow X that they're drinking, like the mugs that they all sit around and have coffee on in X-Men 97 in the morning.
Immediate product placement. And it's like animated, and I'm like, I need that.
I want the like. I love the fact that Xavier was like, well, we need to order some mugs for the mansion. You know what I mean? like I love that they're just like, they're just for coffee. Just for coffee in the morning. God, that Jubilee.
Just a little branding, a little X-Men branding.
That Jubilee episode was so fucking good. God, it was so fun. The video game episode. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's too many spoilers for it, but fuck. X-Men 97 is great.
Do you want to? I figured we'd talk about it on. I mean, we don't have to talk about a Patreon pod. Do you want to talk about X-Men 97 a little bit? I don't think people have heard your thoughts.
We have some hotline calls. We have to pick our gift horse for April, but yeah, we can chat a little at 97. It's fucking fantastic. I love that it feels like a 90s cartoon, but they have injected... right now, I feel like Morph and Jubilee feel like they're written today, which is the little knob that you turn, that you go, okay, good. Because if we were just doing legit, like, 90s style stuff, it wouldn't feel fulfilling. It would feel... there's something missing because we have changed. We don't live in the 90s anymore. We want stuff to be like the 90s, but we can't have it.
That's interesting. I like that. Our eye line, there needs to be a little bit of us.
Morph's comedy is the stupid little joke of Morph clicking through the danger room and seeing the schedule being Rogue and Magneto, where they just look.
Magneto?
Yeah, where they just look to the side. They just go click, 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 and they're not making eye contact with the board, but looking at Gambit. Like little things like that. Morph is fucking hilarious. And Jubilee feels like a teenager from the 90s, but clearly written with like the style. Like in the 90s, we didn't know how to write teenagers because all the adult writers never saw actual teenagers portrayed, because the writers in the 90s grew up with teenagers who were all in their 30s on TV and movies, who weren't written like teenagers, at least on the mainstream. Yeah, you still had like your Linklaters, and you had some stuff out there that was...
Kevin Smith and Linklater, but they were weirdos for a reason. They were the outsiders that made us look at it today.
Whereas like now it feels like
total tangent. I got to interrupt the X-Men love, but I hear the showing at 4:30 Kevin Smith movie. I know 3 people that have seen it, and they said that it is his absolute best work since Clerks, and that it is like Kevin Smith in a full power, but today. And I was like, I think Clerks 3 was that. They're like, no, this feels like he was able to do something without his own IP and make something as important as Clerks. And I was like, that is high praise. So really apparently his new movie this year is like his like greatest hits. He's back in a new way, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm excited for that.
I had to share that with someone that would appreciate it. I'm losing my crap for that.
I only saw him post about it, and that was the first time I even heard of the movie. And so, thoroughly enjoying that. Also, fuck you, by the way, Kevin Smith, for that fucking April Fool's Day joke. Not cool. It got Alexandra. She literally on the second, she went, "Oh my God, did you hear they're finally releasing Dogma? Releasing a remaster of Dogma?" And I went, "Babe, when did you read that?" And she went, "When? Wait, what? What do you mean?" And I was like, "When did you read that? Was it yesterday on April 1st?" And she was like, "No!" And I was like, "Yeah!" Anyways, I digress.
I did not put that together until just now.
Wait, did you literally
was like, "Oh, good for everyone else."
Yeah, that's not happening.
Because I have it on DVD, so it's not a big, as big a deal to me. I can watch Dogma whenever I want.
Do you have the double set that I do that looks like a Bible? That's like the only...
I have the big, like, it looks like that's the one.
Yep.
But like, so it's not as big a deal to me. So I liked the post and acknowledged, like, I literally went good for everyone else because everyone now gets it. I did not put that together.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's genius, Kevin.
You dick. I love you. Okay. So anyways, back to X-Men. I had two thoughts. One, spoiler talk for X-Men for the next 30 seconds. Okay, here it comes. Spoiler talk for X-Men. I fucking love that they changed the intro to be actual Jean Grey. Did you catch that? For the front. Oh my God, that was so good. The fine detail, the attention to detail is so fucking good. Also, like they're turning the notch up on the like Japanese anime inspiration without doing Japanese anime.
Yeah. And none of the things that you and I struggle with like the falling over, the sweat bead, but it's still a little punchier. It's the right levels, you know?
Yeah. It's fucking great. It feels fantastic. The voice acting is really fun and nostalgic, but it's a perfect blend because you've got like, I don't know who it was that voiced Mojo, but that felt like a new. I mean, like to me, X-Men '97, Marvel is finally playing the game DC's been playing in their animation. Like, I get that. What If is technically their animation and it's good, but it's not the same. It's still like, they're not. It's still like a very Marvel version of this. This is just like a legit animated show.
Yeah, it doesn't feel special.
Right.
It feels like an animated version of the MCU. This feels like an animated show.
And DC's been knocking this out of the park for fucking years and years. And this is the one thing DC, as far as motion picture is considered, they've been crushing Marvel on for fucking over a decade. And this feels like Marvel's finally in the game now, animation-wise. Like it's so good.
Did you catch the voice actress of the adult Jubilee?
No, I didn't notice. Is it like a stunt casting?
It's two different voices. It's the original Jubilee from the X-Men 92 talking to X-Men 97's Jubilee.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Oh, Jake, I'm so upset that I missed that. Wow.
Isn't that so special?
That is fucking awesome.
And they sounded so similar.
It makes me go like, wait, why couldn't she just play Jubilee again? I'm sure there's reasons, but that's really
it's such
cool.
a beautiful cameo.
That is really, really good. I like that. I didn't catch that at all. And
that's one of my favorite little Easter egg cameos.
I know that there are a lot of the original cast has come back, but there are some recast voices. I haven't been able to specifically go, that person sounds different. Like there's nothing that I rewatched all of the last season of the original series just because I was like, well, I want to lead into it. And nothing to me immediately stood out as sounding like a new version of a character that I'm familiar with.
And that's impressive. They the team behind it, I've interviewed a few of them. I talked with the composers last week. I sat down with the head director. I know a few of the people, friend Charlie Feldman, who's kind of in our extended friend group. She's one of the head writers. So the whole team is close, but we actually had our WonderCon panel right after the X-Men panel. And blissfully, the whole room didn't leave. I was so afraid of being like, how do you follow that?
Right.
Like that's such a let's follow the Rolling Stones. But it was really cool to meet a few of the voice actors who I'd only met over Zoom, a few of the people I'd only met over Zoom interviews. And the guy that voices Gambit is new, and he's young, like he's a young guy, and he's got a ton of photos in his 20s dressed as comic accurate X-Men 92 Gambit.
That's fun.
And he dressed at the WonderCon panel in the crop top rock shirt from this Gambit.
Fantastic.
So he literally like dressed as his character and had photos of him dressed as the other character. And I was like, that's why this guy's like perfect.
Done.
I didn't notice it was a new Gambit because you've done it.
Yeah, I had no idea. I just assumed that they got the guy. They did the thing that people do.
Feige apparently had two rules. He wanted at least 80% of the original cast, and they had to use the original score.
I love that. I love it so much. Let me ask you this question. Season 2. So we already know we're getting 3 seasons. They've all been overseen by the now ousted director.
So seasons 1 and 2 were completely written and mapped out by the showrunner that is no longer there. Season 3 had been started when he was let go. Season 3 has since been greenlit.
Got it. Okay. So are they going to call it season 2? Or are they going to call it X-Men 98? Because
I would.
Because it doesn't make any sense to do X-Men 97 season 2 because the original series ended in 96. It's not like X-Men 97 is like, oh, this is from the show back in 97. It's like, no, this is a continuation from the year prior. So season 2 needs to be called
because X-Men 92 was when it started. It ended in 96 because it was 5 years.
Exactly.
It needs to be X-Men 98.
Listen, it's going to be an absolute nightmare on whoever has to program the way that Disney Plus, the user interface works. But it needs to be X-Men 98, and then the next one needs to be X-Men 99, and then we need X-Men 2K. That's what I want. And I want them to have like craze over the 2K
and
bug.
it have some basketball scenes.
X-Men 2K bug.
I think it should go up. I also think at least it's numerical, so when you go to like by alphabet, it will be in the right order. But I hope enough audiences don't think it's a gimmick, because I see a lot of dumb people where it'd be like, why would they? But it is the right way to do it, and I think that's a cheeky, great way to evolve the characters, bring us to the 2000s, which is when X-Men are X-Men, the Ultimate stuff.
Right.
It'd be fun to have, like, if they do X-Men 2001, they start introducing Ultimate versions of some of the characters we haven't met yet. Like, say they save some people, it'd be fun to have, like, a cheeky little Gilbert-looking art.
The question there is, who wasn't around in that original series? They fucking used everybody at some point. Every single person. Oh my God. By the way, that I popped so hard when Forge in the Storm episode walks past the portrait. It's so good. It warmed my heart. I went like, this is everything I want. Like, I love that they're just like, yeah, hey guys, look, all these characters that they're all around. Keep your eye out, because, the Polaris is knocking about.
And not in an Easter egg way, in a story way.
They cut to it.
I love that it was a story-driven choice.
Yeah, and it also lets you know where this...
Yeah, and I love...
where this person is in their career. Like, it's not like, oh, this is a Forge who hasn't really discovered his ability to work with a team yet. Or, like, it's because, these are an amalgamation of all these different stories and all these different comics throughout the years. And so every time you kind of introduce a character, you do kind of have to placate to two audiences. This is what they're doing really well. You have to be able to ensure that people who don't know any of these characters, or maybe who never watch anything, who are just watching this for the first time because they're just recently into Marvel, they understand. They go, great, boom, got it. I see that this character was clearly in another team of some sort, whether or not they know that's the X-Men or not the X-Men or the X-Force or whatever, X-Factor, like they have all of their... Whether they know that or not, it's just like, okay, boom, I know what I need to know about this character. But then also you have to placate to the fucking nerds who know every step of a character's journey and make sure that you're telling us where they're now placed on this journey.
Yeah, and that's a huge difference.
And
I think they're landing that really hard job. I also, before we move on to the hotline calls, which we should, the other thing about that board I really loved is, like, they have that great moment with Strong Guy and X Factor and, like, images that are like, oh, that's exciting for nerds. But then right next to that, they make it kind of like a lighter joke by having him have a picture of himself in jorts. Like,
yep.
Like, I love that they have a sense of humor about even like, here's this heartwarming moment, and Forge loves Forge. Like, and it's a perfect balance.
There was literally a picture of him with like a horse, I think. yeah, it was just like really, it was good stuff. All right.
They know the character so well that even his message boards to himself are funny and true.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into the hotline calls and let's crown a new gift horse.
Yeah, I can't endorse X-Men 97 enough. It's been real fun. All right, yeah, let's see what we got in hotline calls. Hey, Coy Jandro.
Hey.
If people want to call the hotline and leave a message, how do they do that?
Well, there's a phone number they can call, which is a very specific phone number. That
you didn't answer that very quickly. Wow, it seems like you're stalling.
Well,
for some
I
reason.
just want to make sure the people feel like I was dedicated to the right answer. They got to call this phone number. That's 818.
I'm sorry. Are you getting a phone call? Are you getting a phone call? Because you have your phone in your hand. I'm just curious if you're getting a phone call right now.
794-0722. That's 818-794-0722. I got to take this call. It's from the Koicast hotline. That's 818-794-0722.
Hey, guys. Harold from Alabama. Calling in because I had a little fun thought game, whatever, for y'all. Okay, so, like, I know you each have different interests of, like, an Koi's big, like, gym bro. I understand I am myself. That was what thought that I had was who would be the best and worst comic book gym bro, like, gym buddy to go with. Like, would Wolverine be a fun person to go work out with? Would the Hulk just be annoying or whatever? And then then, like, on Jake's end, I would love the perspective of who would be the best and worst directors. Mutants, everybody on the table. Just love to get you guys' thoughts. I'll hang up and listen.
All right, that was Harold Stokes from Alabama. A little bit tough to understand. Quality was a little rough, but I got it. Did you get it? Did you hear it? Do you need clarification?
Yeah, Jim Bro, but I didn't hear his for you directors.
Okay.
What was that?
Yeah. So apparently these are the two things that define us. I'm a film director, and you're just a
Gains and directing.
Okay, so yeah, what comic book character would be the best Jim Bro, the best guy to go get swole with? I mean, I have my immediate answer.
You know,
for that, and I'm not even a Jim Bro, but I just assume the answer's got to be Cap, right?
Oh, I wasn't even gonna go there.
So
I love that.
Inspiring and just like, yeah, like he's so like loving and caring, and it's gonna be like, but then simultaneously, if you want to go with some guy who's not gonna make you feel like shit, and he's just gonna be like, oh, let me spot you, and then he's gonna take the entire fucking flat bar off of you with one hand.
He's a super soldier, so he's gonna be able to run for hours. He's gonna be able to lift like everything.
But he's so positive. I feel like the positivity, that would be nice, personally. But who do you think?
I think it would be good to have someone that would deliver a speech like that and be so motivational, but I also would be afraid that he would not get a good workout because he was trying to be so nice that he was taking care of me, not him.
Right.
I'd be afraid that like he'd be like lifting and be embarrassed at the number of plates, and he'd be like, oh, not in front of the other people. Like, I'd be afraid he wouldn't get his workout in.
He'd pull his,
but at the same time,
punches just for you.
Yeah, exactly. He'd be pulling his lifts. But at the same time, my first thought was Wolverine because he has a healing factor, so he'd never get tired. And I was thinking it'd be fun to work out with someone that was like so motivational because they just could keep going. Like, he would have no healing period of like, oh, I gotta take a second. Like, he'd always be ready to do whatever you need, and that'd be like really inspiring. From a sheerly like if people were watching side, it'd be fun to work out with Jean Grey because you could have her telekinesis, put some extra like weights on, and you could lift heavier. Because she could spot you and like help you lift heavier without anyone knowing she was like assisting from afar.
Okay, all right.
So for an ego boost, that'd be nice. Man, I love this question. I've never thought of that before.
I'm gonna go without any serums or help. I'm gonna go just regular old human powered Wee Huey because I feel like him and I are probably on the same playing field. Wee Huey will be my Jim Bro.
I'm just picturing you and Jack Quaid.
No. I'm going. He said comic book. I'm going fucking Simon. Okay, I'm going Simon Pegg.
Oh man, that's good.
Simon Pegg and I just on an elliptical, just like talking about old Star Trek episodes.
And like certain bands, like 80s and 90s bands.
Yeah.
I think I have mine, and it's very specific, and it's similar to your Captain America, and I don't know what this says about me that this is my choice over Captain America, but I think he'd be very good at knowing how to lift in really creative ways. He's trained in so many different forms and mastered so many different body physicalities, not just martial arts, but the actual ability to abuse your body and come back from it. He would be very versed in having to keep up with otherworldly humans, Superman, etc. I think Bruce Wayne would be the best person to work out with because he'd be like Captain America in that he is super motivational, but from a dark place. He's got so much vengeance and like rage. He'd be coming from like,
moody.
I need to do this. Yeah, he'd be moody. But imagine what he would know about like peak human conditioning.
Yeah, but you can't work out to The Cure.
Brandon Lee's The Crow begs to differ. That soundtrack is awesome, and I work out to the Crow soundtrack all the time.
Who
I
would
love
be
the idea of like MCR Batman,
right,
just like
right. Who would be the worst Jim Bros?
Spider-Man. I think would be so annoying. I think Spider-Man would be so quippy.
Any of the quippy people, because that's the last shit. You don't be making me fucking laugh. I'm already miserable.
I love Spider-Man, but not in that setting. And I think he'd get insecure. I think he'd have the same problem as Cap. He would feel bad about being so strong, but instead of doing like a demurring, soldier, he'd make jokes, and then I'd feel twice as bad, and I wouldn't be able to work out.
Booster would be so obnoxious.
Yeah, could not hang. Oh, Multiple Man would be annoying because he'd be able to like lift a bunch and then form back into himself, be twice as strong, and he'd brag about it.
Does that even count though? Yeah. All right, I got another good one though.
He'd spot himself and make sure everyone saw it.
I do have another really good one though, and that is assuming that there's good communication. Taskmaster, because then you could be like, "Hey, watch everybody who has really good form and then teach me, because you'll immediately know everybody. You'll know how to lift. You'll know how your form will be perfect, and then you can maybe hopefully communicate that to me. But it's all about the communication. Sometimes Taskmaster's not so
like
great with
that.
the communication.
Like he'd be able to see every flaw in your lift too,
Right, yes,
because he'd know what perfect was.
Yes, and he would be like, "Don't do it. You're doing it terribly. It's like you were going to hurt yourself.
Your elbow is out by 5 degrees, and that's going to cause this anterior tilt to cause this tear."
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, I love this question.
I have the new best one. Wanda. Just like I want her just to like make me ripped in the eyes of everybody else, and then I don't even have to go to the fucking gym.
I like that mine is literally how to get peak human conditioning via Batman, and yours is how to appear to have peak
Is
human
how to
conditioning
just
via
skip
Wanda.
all that shit and just eat fucking cookies. I just want to eat cookies and be swole in the eyes of others.
That is such a Bill Burr response to such a good question. I love the idea of like, how do I appear as if?
Yeah. All right. The other thing is, who would make good and bad film directors? I have a good right off the bat, and it's going to be, again, a hot take here. Listen, Magneto. He fucking knows what he wants. He's got a vision. He will stop at nothing to execute that vision. He wants everybody that's a part of his vision to succeed. Okay. And he doesn't really give two fucks about corporations and about the suits. So it's like, that's a fucking ideal fucking filmmaker. He's going to make some great shit. He would be a great director.
I'm going to stick with X-Men. I love Magneto for all of that.
Yeah.
That's a very Fincher approach.
And a man
I
with a
see him
vision.
doing a lot of takes, and he's going to run his team into the ground, but he's going to get the art like Fincher.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm going to go with a more Terrence Malick-esque director.
Oh, no.
A man who's going to go out there, esoteric. He might get some good art. There might be stuff in there, but it's going to be a lot of editing around it. Colossus.
Okay.
That man is always painting in fields. That
You know
man's
what?
always just painting and making weird stuff. And I feel like he'd have some really good like Russian metaphors for art. Like he's got all that like Russian training. Like
Okay.
if you look
All
at
right, I
the
like
two
it.
great schools of actors, there's the American school and then there's the Russian school. John Bernthal left America to go study acting in Russia for 5 years. And he came back with so many different sensibilities. And I think that's why he's one of those actors that's so grounded. He's
Right.
so like, he never looks like he's performing. He's so in it. And some of his metaphors are beautiful Russian standards. And you don't hear about the Russian techniques a lot. I want to see what a Russian director by way of Colossus can do.
I got another good one. Hazel from Saga. Hazel's been through, like, already a great writer on her own.
Yeah.
I literally made a journal of her writings because she's very poignant. Has such a unique vision in a way that nobody else in that universe has her experience. It's one of those, it's one of those, like, there's a reason why Trevor Noah will be a more unique stand-up than just like generic white guy from fucking Maine. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, not to say that one is funnier than the other, but it's all about point of views. You know what I mean? Like, Hazel would be a fantastic director as far as like having a really unique take, a really unique perspective on things. Cause that's what it's about. It is about ultimately like, it's about your perspective. Now, ability to kind of command and lead, because the director does need to really kind of be a leader. I don't know, but maybe in like a small indie style way where it's like, micro budget. I think Hazel would crush it. She'd be a great director.
I got two more for very specific reasons. Sticking with the X-Men, because I love the X-Men, obviously, but I'm in an X-Men space. I want a director, much like Paul Thomas Anderson, who is able to look at every single member of his crew. And I worked on a PTA movie once, and I remember we did one of his iconic long shots where it's like it's a 7-minute shot in the movie, but it took us 3 days to shoot. And I remember there was a perfect run where we had gone through it. Everything was timed exactly right. In the scene, in life, we had to like get out of a car. A cop took his shirt off. I took my shirt off, grabbed a hot dog, took a bite, then jumped in a pool. Like, there's a lot of actions that are all simultaneous. And it took us a full day just to get the timing right because everything had to be in one frame. And I remember we thought we nailed it. And then he's like, all right, we got to do one more before we lose the light. And he moved the grill that I took a hot dog off by 3 inches. And I remember being like, oh, God. And we had to do it all over again. Multiple man, because he could be every one of his crew and know exactly his vision directing, disperse his minions of himself, And then every time anything went wrong, when he reformed, he'd have all the knowledge of every single angle. So he'd be able to be the DP, he'd be able to be the gaffer, and then just direct it all and know exactly every single frame.
So for both questions asked by Harold, your answer is Multiple Man.
Multiple Man is I'm clearly in a Jamie Madrox phase.
Clearly.
And then the final one of the X-Men, an actor's director. An actor's director because they know what it's like to have a lot of personalities. They know how to handle a lot of personalities. They're a people person, Legion, as an actor's director.
Okay. All right. I'll take that. Worst directors? I mean...
Flash Thompson.
Moon Knight. Anybody with too many personalities that are all pulling in different directions, that's going to be a mess. That's just... You're not going to want that. Honestly, Venom / Eddie, like that's terrible. Nobody want. Oh God.
Yep.
Awful movie. Awful movie.
Butcher from The Boys.
Butcher. I don't know. You know what? He's particular though. Butcher is very particular. Think about all the little things that he does that he know. Butcher knows what he likes and what he doesn't like. That is ultimately a great. There's nothing worse. Fuck. And by the way, all you aspiring filmmakers out there who may or may not be listening, if you're a filmmaker, if you're a director, get rid of the word maybe in your vocabulary. There's nothing that drives me fucking more crazy as an actor than when a director says, oh, maybe this time we try it. Maybe? Or do you want me to do that? Maybe. Oh my God. Maybe there's nothing that drives me fucking more crazy than a director being like, maybe we try one this way. Maybe we do that, or is that what we're doing? Are you telling me that's what we're doing, and you're afraid for some reason that people don't like that, so you put the word maybe in there to qualify it? Grow a fucking pair. Sorry, I know that's sexist, but you know what I mean. And direct your fucking movie. So yeah, nobody wishy-washy. So you got to know what you want, and I think Butcher knows what he wants.
Grow a pair of ovaries because they help create life.
Yeah.
Create this movie. That's what he said.
You get it. You get it.
Well, I love this game. I love this question.
No, we got another call to take.
I think so. Yeah, Greta Gerwig taught us to grow a pair and make $1 billion Barbie hit.
Exactly.
Let's get to our next hotline call.
Hey guys, this is Aiden from Seattle. It's been about a year since I've last called, but this show means so much to me, and I'm just so glad it exists with you two at the helm. I wanted to talk today about James Gunn's Superman. I genuinely don't think I've ever been more excited for a movie. I've really fallen in love with the character since watching Superman and Lois. And everything I've heard about the direction they're taking this new one gets me more and more excited. And it just feels like they're putting together something really special. I first wanted to ask about your guys' thoughts on them dropping the Legacy name and just calling it Superman. I think Legacy sounded a bit like a fan film or documentary about the character, and it shows a lot of confidence in just calling it Superman. So I'm a big fan. I also wanted to ask who you guys think the villain of the movie is. We obviously have Lex in the movie, but it seems like there's something we don't know about when it comes to the antagonist of the movie. I just heard of a very unsubstantiated rumor that the villain is another version of Superman, but instead of Bizarro, it's Ultraman, who's created by Lex Luthor. I admittedly don't know much about Ultraman, but I wonder if it's a little bit of a tired concept to just have the inverse of the hero. But I'm sure Gunn will have debunked this by now. But anyway, what do you guys think of this, and who would you like to see as the villain? I know you've talked about the difficulties of Superman's rogues gallery before, just because it's hard to find someone that can take him down. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. All right, take care and keep up the great work. Thanks. Bye.
Aiden from Seattle, what a fantastic message. We are happy that you are listening. You said that you're happy that we're doing it. Well, we're happy you're listening. We appreciate you so much, Aiden. Thanks for that. Okay, before we get into this, Coy, there's something that's been on my mind for weeks now, and I keep forgetting to mention it, and I'm so glad he called about this. Okay. James Gunn, I know you're listening, okay? We're thankful that you're tuning in. I know that you're a big fan. I know that you followed me on Twitter, okay? But at the end of the day, months and months and months ago, I told you how Alexandra and I became obsessed with a place called Svalbard, which is this rare little island up in the fucking Arctic that like 12 people live in, and how we want to just go live there, and she wants to go live there, and we want to just go spend like a year or two there and just make a movie. Well, guess where he's shooting Superman? because it's fucking Svalbard. He's been posting all about it, how it's going to be where they're shooting the Fortress of Solitude and how they're doing a bunch of shot there. You know what? I know you're listening, James. I'm a big fan. Okay, there's got to be a part in there for me. That's all I'm going to say. All right, I'll take anything, James. Please, I'm begging you. It's the least you could do for for me giving you
location
Svalbard.
scouting.
Yeah, for location scouting for you, because clearly James Gunn is a fan of Koicast. Confirmed.
Koicast confirmed.
Okay, so I did not know that they dropped Legacy. I didn't know that. From the title.
Yeah, so they dropped it like recently, but it got dropped while another bit of news came out, so it kind of swallowed up the Legacy bit being like removed.
Interesting.
I think it's a good move because Legacy sounded like the end of Superman and like what he leaves behind a little bit to me. It also sounded like it'd be a good thing later down there, and it also did have that fan film, as in like the Legacy of Superman. I hear what he's saying in the call.
I'm torn.
But we've never had a movie called Superman.
Yeah, Superman the movie is what the original was called.
Right. That's the closest we have, because the rest have been sequels and or returns and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I love this idea. I would have called it Man of Tomorrow, because I think that kind of like alludes out of the Man of Steel, and it's also one of his many names.
I think because of Man of Steel, you want to get as far away from the Man ofs at all, or and also wasn't there that flop recently, World of Tomorrow, that didn't do very well. I think Hugh Jackman.
You're right.
Hugh Jackman was
so
in
I
that.
think just Superman. I think Superman is great.
Yeah, I didn't mind that they called it Legacy, but I don't put a ton of investment into the title. The only like comic book movie title that I've truly disliked was Dark Knight Rises. I fucking hated that. I still think it's a terrible name for the third movie. That to me felt like such a dumb corporate. Everybody liked Dark Knight a lot, so let's just call this one Dark Knight again. But add that was so clearly a suit move that I absolutely hated. That movie should have been called The Batman. And I understand that eventually we got a movie called The Batman, but that's what the third one should have been called. So
I felt like it should have been Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and then The Caped Crusader. I thought they were going with different Batman.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
and that would have been fine too.
Cool to like.
Yeah, that would have been fine too. Whatever. But in any case, who do you think the villain's gonna be? And he mentioned Ultraman. Speaking of the original Reeves Batman, Superman. There's no reason they're doing Ultraman. That was the worst. That was created for the movies, and it's ridiculous and atrocious and awful, and there's no world where James Gunn would do that. He's just too smart. He listens to Koicast.
I mean, he's a smart man, obviously. I mean, I think the issue with Ultraman is it feels like a petty move to jab at Snyder, and I feel like that isn't James Gunn. I feel like a lesser director might go like, I'm going to make an altruistic Superman. Let me put in a dark one to show where he's been lately. Like, it feels very much like a petty move to me.
I wouldn't have even interpreted it as that. And it's because my brain can't even imagine a modern day Ultraman, because that Ultraman was so hokey and cartoonish and of the 80s with the giant fingernails and the atomic symbol. It was just so corny and weird that I can't even imagine it being like a slight on the Snyder Superman, because they couldn't be more different. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. I don't read that as Hyperion. That's the only thing I could
see.
Yeah,
and I feel like Ultraman's in the comics occasionally now because of like Earth 2 kind of stuff, and he does pop up, but he's not. It doesn't work for the first appearance of Superman, especially, but it also like it doesn't work for like in Logan. It worked to have that other Logan as a man versus self metaphor for where Logan was in his journey. Right. This isn't where Superman's going to be in his journey, or where Superman is as a character. So I personally am not worried about that. Also, I think Lex Luthor represents enough of the opposite of Superman to not have a character that is the opposite of Superman. So I've heard recently that James Gunn said like. I think he debunked it in his own way by saying, guys, it's pretty obvious our villain is Lex Luthor, our like lead. Like, he kind of spelled out like this is the movie.
Right.
I do think there could be a additional villain. Well, I think it is going to be a Lex Luthor versus Superman movie.
Don't we have like Metamorpho already confirmed? So there are other characters that we know are going to be at play here that are from the DC universe. And so honestly, that's, I wouldn't mind Lex is clearly a big bad. Like, that's the story. That's the movie. But I wouldn't mind a little bit of that. We always talked about how the Spider-Man movies, like, it always would have been nice if like they opened like a comic book where it's just like, oh, him taking down two minor. I mean, it's not too dissimilar to what they did with Amazing Spider-Man with Rhino, where it's like, here's a character.
Rhino was the closest, and I
Yeah.
love those scenes in the movie, which is so funny.
Totally.
Like, I love that opening scene
Yeah.
of Amazing Spider-Man.
Yep, exactly that. Like I wouldn't mind that. It's not, you're building a universe here. You have a lot to play with, and you have a lot of things that you can. And not everything needs to be an establishment either. Not everything is like, oh, this is a setup because he's going to come back in 2 movies. Like, no, sometimes he could just, punch someone in the face.
And with how powerful Superman is, he
Right.
could take out like Firefly and not be insulting
Right.
to Firefly fans because he's
100%.
Superman.
Yeah.
So like, I honestly think Brainiac is a great choice for the second movie. I've got a whole I've
Yeah.
pitched it many times about going at AI and going at the studios using AI. It's very James Gunn to go like,
Totally.
hey, I'm scared of this thing happening. Let's use this as the villain. Like, I think that is maybe the second movie. I would have potentially used Brainiac for the first and kept Lex for the second. But if they're doing Lex, I'd use Brainiac next.
I think there's, as much as I always talk about how just put the art first, at the end of the day, I just want the art to come first. I am also not naive to the way the world works, and there is always a little politics involved. And the reality is, you come out swinging, and Lex is the big hitter, to keep our baseball analogy going from earlier. I think you have to do Lex in the first movie because you have to establish this is nothing you've seen before. You're in good hands. This is the new universe. And I feel like it's one of those things where you get away with not having Joker in Batman Begins because Joker seems, at least at that point in cinematic language, at that point where the world was when Batman Begin comes out, Joker almost doesn't even work to... We now have the knowledge of knowing what Heath did with it, what the character and what Nolan did with it. But before we had that knowledge, Joker didn't even fit in that universe. It didn't seem like, you can't have Joker running around that universe. You needed to establish the universe and then allow us to be like, okay, this is what, this is the way things are going to operate. And this is the realism being presented to them. Whereas this is like, this dude flies. He's an alien from another world. We're putting all of our fucking, we want to show you all the horses before the race. I think that's important. I think there's some politics involved in that, and there's some good marketing involved in being, nope, we're coming out.
Also,
swinging
the
Superman Lex.
Joker represented escalation in very, very clear terms, so you needed it to be a follow-up. And
Totally.
Lex represents a foundational problem, especially if they go with the childhood element. So a first movie with Lex Luthor, especially if they want it to be a Clark Kent, Superman, all of these issues, you want your A-list. Jake's great point about the politics. You need to come out going like, this is our formed world, especially in a world that already has superheroes, which this one does. They're trying to build Metropolis as an actual place. You need Lex for that. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I wouldn't mind a Clark and Lex friendship to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's a great tale. I'm excited.
But yeah,
I'm excited
thank you for calling, man. This was this is one of my most anticipated movies in a long time as well.
Call back,
and thanks for being a listener.
Yeah, call back more often than every year, Aiden. We appreciate you.
Yeah, we're here all the time.
All right. Well,
speaking of callers, should we crown a horse?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
I think you're like 2 seconds ahead of me, by the way. Apologies to the listeners.
Yeah,
I just noticed a little speedy catch up. So if we've been cutting each other off in this last couple minutes, I think it's because Jake's a little different time wise from me, and apologies.
We've had some wonky connection issues, but listen, that's what happens when Coy it's his fault. I don't know. I got nothing. Okay, I just want to blame it on you.
I live in California.
Yeah.
This is on me.
Yeah, it's because you didn't come with me. It's all your fault. All right, so it is time to crown our April unpunchable gift horse of the month. Patreon.com/Koicast. Patreon.com/Koicast and become a gift horse tiered patron. You will be entered into this monthly contest. The winner gets an item of their choosing from the shop. You get to add something to Coy and I's watch list for the patron only pod, as well as you get your name and lights and Discord, some other fun little stuff. So without further ado, Coy Jandro, the unpunchable gift horse for the month of April 2024 is we heard from him today. It's Harold Stokes. Sorry, Coy, that was very loud in your ear.
It was more intense than it's ever been, but it's good for Harold.
The fans didn't hear that. The fans will hear the regular gift horse music. That is music that plays on the internet when you think that. Anyways, Harold Stokes, congrats on your victory of becoming gift horse once again. I think it's, let's see, Harold, let me pull it up here. I think Harold has definitely won once, if not twice in the past. Let me see here. Gift horse history. Harold, this would be, he won pretty recently in December, Harold, and then once again in February. So this is Harold's third time being the gift horse. It just goes to show you that there's no limit to how many times you can win. As long as you remain a gift horse patron, you are in the running. Thanks to you, Harold. Thanks to everybody who continues to support the program via the Patreon. We really appreciate you.
What has Harold given us in the past so I know what we're in for?
Harold is the one who made us watch some diehards. So listen, I'm very, very glad. And I hope that Harold makes us watch another Bruce Willis movie.
Or another Die Hard. I'll finish the
Oh, you know
run.
what? Yeah, but that would be kind of unfair because I'm probably going to do that anyway. But anyways, I'm excited.
All right, well, that is going to do it for this episode of KoiCast. We got a new gift horse. We got some great calls. We talked all sorts of X-Men. We talked directors. We talked casting.
They were here.
I love doing this show. This was an
it.
absolute blast, even though there's a slight 5-second differential, which is, it's very funny because I'll say something and I'll be like, nah, Jake didn't like that joke. And then he'll laugh and I'll go like, it worked. And then other times, like, I'll see him like do that setup and I'll be like, that was funny. But like, it's not landing for him when he was funny. So we'll see how this transcription goes on your end by the time it all comes together. So much love to you listeners. I appreciate each and every one of you. Every con I've gone to, I've met more and more KoiCast listeners, which means my occasionally plugging this more often has worked. I've talked about this on Real Rejects. I've talked about this on New Rockstars lately. So if you know me from those places, thank you for finding us here on KoiCast. If you're a listener and you like this show, please tell your friends, share it, do that comic store thing where you're like, check out this book, but make it about our podcast. And if you're a patron, please tell others about it because that is a really fun thing to share art with everyone over on the Patreon. So in any way you're hearing this, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you, as always, to Comics for existing. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
If you're enjoying this podcast or any podcasts on the Dragon Wagon Radio Network, be sure to check out the Dragon Wagon shop. You can tout your podcast pride while supporting your favorite indie podcast network. Make sure to check it often for new items and limited time designs. So shop now at dragonwagonshop.com. Get your dragon swag on.
It's Dragon Wagon.